This innocent 4-year-old child you're seeing on screen witnessed something no child should ever see.
Okay, where did you see blood at?
On the pillows and the cups and on the bed. And then I started crying, but I tried to call 911. Ran here.
You ran?
As fast as I could.
His tiny voice shattered the silence. He was running for his life from a brutal murder scene. He saw blood. He saw death. He saw the horrific murder of the only people who loved him. The killer thought no one saw, but Dameon Huffman did, and by the time he found out, it was already too late. What exactly did this innocent child see that morning? Who were the victims? And how did Dameon's green dragon drawing become the clue that led police straight to a killer? Watch this video till the end because what happened next will leave you speechless. On March 27, 2003, Bradford, Ohio, the farmhouse sat on 40 acres of Ohio land. Quiet, surrounded by cornfields, wind whispering through bare trees. Inside, it was even quieter. Jack Myers was 51. His wife, Linda, was 55. They were more than just grandparents. They were the only family little Dameon had ever truly known. Dameon's biological mother, Amber Hulsher, was just 16 years old when he was born. She was too young to care for him. His father was never mentioned in the case, not in reports, not in court, not at all. Dameon's grandparents ran a small pizza shop in town, loved by locals, worked hard, helped neighbors, and raised Dameon like he was their own. That morning, Jack and Linda never showed up to open the pizza shop. No calls, no messages, just silence. But at 9:15 a.m., something happened. Dameon, 4 years old, burst through the doors of his daycare, breathless and trembling. He told his teacher the unimaginable. "My grandparents were lying in bed, melted." The teachers didn't wait. They called 911 immediately. When police arrived at the home, they were met with a scene that would haunt them for years. The door was unlocked. The house looked still, but what they found inside shattered every illusion of peace. Jack and Linda Myers were found in their bed, brutally murdered. Blood soaked into the pillows, the sheets, the floor. The violence wasn't just deliberate. It was personal. Yet nothing had been stolen. No signs of a break-in at the front. But the basement window had been removed from the frame. The phone lines were cut. A size 7.5 footprint was pressed into the dirt outside. Whoever did this knew the house, knew the layout, knew exactly how to get in and how to silence a family. And yet they missed something. In the next room, just feet away, a child had been awake, pretending to sleep but listening to everything. And he remembered everything. He told officers later he saw a dark figure near his doorway. A green monster. A green dragon, he called it. What that meant, no one knew yet. But it would become the most important clue in this entire case. Because what Dameon didn't know was that the killer wasn't a stranger. It was someone he already knew. Someone the victims trusted. Someone who had a key to the house. But more on that later. Dameon's memory of a green dragon seemed like a child's confusion until detectives found a muddy green tracksuit in a discarded river bag. River bag was found outside the town, in which latex gloves, wet shoes, shotgun slugs, and a green tracksuit were there. That tracksuit matched Dameon's green dragon drawing. Suddenly, his childhood memory carried weight law enforcement couldn't ignore. Investigators traced the gift card used to buy the slugs, matched the fingerprint inside the latex glove, checked the tire tracks in the mud outside the farmhouse. Each thread pointed in one direction. A name, Gregg Allen Myers, the younger son of Jack and Linda Myers. Detectives started digging into Gregg's background. What they found painted a disturbing picture. Investigators found Gregg had been kicked out of his home, stuck in a bitter divorce, and drowning in debt. He had no job, no money, broken, but he still had one thing left, a potential inheritance. If anything happened to Jack and Linda, Gregg would be next in line to take over the farm. And then came the testimony a close friend, John Helmendaler, told police. "He asked me where to get a shotgun, said he was going to kill his dad." That statement had once been brushed off. Now it echoed louder than ever. Detectives brought Gregg in for questioning. The interview started calmly, but by the final 45 minutes, he asked for a lawyer. He slipped. He contradicted himself. He couldn't explain the purchases. And most damning of all, he never asked what happened to his parents. Dameon's green dragon wasn't just a child's fantasy. It was evidence in motion, a memory, a match. But the battle wasn't over. It was only the beginning. What detectives didn't know yet. The true battle would take place not just in interrogation rooms but in court. The evidence was mounting. The confession was partial. But now came the real test. Could the state convince a jury that Gregg Allen Myers murdered his own parents in cold blood? In April 2004, the courtroom in Dark County filled with quiet dread. Friends, neighbors, and family members showed up, some in disbelief, others in search of closure. Gregg walked in with a blank face. No visible grief. No apology. He avoided eye contact with anyone who once shared Sunday dinners with him. The charges were severe. 2 counts of aggravated murder, each with firearm and silencer specifications. 1 count of aggravated burglary, and a mandatory death penalty recommendation. But the defense? They barely spoke. No opening statement, no witnesses. No attempt to explain away the shotgun, the slugs, the tape, or the gloves. The prosecution, meanwhile, painted a chilling picture. Gregg was broke, divorced, evicted, and desperate. He stood to inherit everything, if Jack and Linda were out of the way. And all it took was one early morning, a shotgun, and the belief that no one was watching. But someone was. Dameon. The boy's words echoed through the courtroom like a haunting bell. He had seen something no child should ever carry. Jurors listened as detectives testified about the river bag, the gift card, and the fingerprint in the glove. They showed photos of the green tracksuit, and then Dameon's crayon drawing was introduced. The green dragon he described? Now it had a real-world match. And still, Gregg never looked up. But behind the scenes, there was another battle brewing. One that had nothing to do with evidence. It started during jury selection, and it would become a legal fight that dragged this case back into the spotlight years after the verdict was read. The trial ended with a guilty verdict. Gregg Allen Myers was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But that wasn't the end. Because deep inside the court transcripts, buried beneath the evidence and the testimony, were cracks that would reopen everything. It started with the jury. During selection, some jurors brought up religion. One even said they'd judge guilt based on the Bible. Another claimed they didn't need to believe all the evidence, just part of it. A few even quoted scripture, and the court allowed it. The defense later argued that this biased the jury. They said faith replaced facts, but the appellate court disagreed. They called it non-prejudicial. Then came the confession. Gregg had been interrogated on March 29, 2003. He asked for a lawyer halfway through. But the detectives kept talking, and what followed were statements made under fear, threats of the death penalty, manipulation, pressure. The court ruled parts of that confession inadmissible. But the earlier admissions? They stayed. Even so, Gregg never once asked what happened to his parents. Never mourned. Never denied. Appeals went up the ladder. First to the state court, then to the Ohio Supreme Court. And every time the outcome stayed the same. The conviction stood. But there was still one piece missing. Because even with the verdict, even with the sentence, one child's life had been changed forever. And his story wasn't over. While Gregg Allen Myers began his life sentence inside Marion Correctional, Dameon Huffman was only beginning his own journey, which was marked by silence, nightmares, and the memory of a green dragon. At just 4 years old, he witnessed the murder of the only people who loved him. Today, he lives in Russia, Ohio, works as a painter, and when asked about the man who destroyed his world, he said simply, "I hope he regrets it. Not anger, not hate, just the voice of a survivor." Our deepest condolences to Jack and Linda Myers. Subscribe for more true crime stories that deserve to be heard.